So this is the second part of a series where I'm showing how I built this custom floating vanity for the bathroom here, and I'll put a link there so you can see the playlist for everything I did here if you're curious. And then I'll also put the playlist, or sorry, the link to the first part where I built this, the actual frame and most of it. And then in this part, I'm actually showing how I did the finishing, mounting. Obviously, I bought this piece on top, but you can see I had to mount this, get the slides mounted correctly so that this is all lined up, because this is actually one full piece that I glued together out of quarter sawn oak, and then made one big panel and then cut it into 4 pieces that had this continuous grain across the whole thing. So take a look in the description for the tools I use, any other information, and give me some comments to explain maybe something you saw that you think I could do better, or any other questions that maybe I didn't cover. So I'm going to mount the vanity that I made. And what I found was this is my case here with the piece of drywall was the perfect height. So I just wanted to kind of get it in there and temporarily put it on here so that I could mount the French cleat. So as I said, I put it up here. And then here's the French cleat. You see the top part that with the angle is part of the carcass that I'm touching right there. And then this part is the piece that's going to attach to the wall and be the support. So you'll see it as I show later. As it mounts, as it sits on there, it grabs against that. And then here it is mounted. I used some lug screws into the stud so it'd be really secure. And then on the sides, I just put some wall plugs. Drywall plugs there. I had to do a little bit of extra work here on the boards on the bottom, but yeah, it's not visible. So you see I'm mounted, and then here I am in my socks for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but you can see that French cleat on the top with the angle, and you'll see come into view here on the wall as I get it just over. It's pretty tight. It's gonna go up there. And then you'll see it slide down. So I've cleared it now. So you'll see that it just went over there. That 45 degree will hold each other together. And as it slides, it'll actually push it closer to the wall and be very strong. So there's no issues with this at all. So it makes a nice secure connection. So you can see that little gap there. Like I said, that's why I finished the sides. As you saw in the previous video, where there's about a 3-inch gap. Then you could just, so that's why I veneered it with a white oak, just to make it look nice. And then went back here, so I had pre-drilled, and again I showed in a previous video, the face frame, and it's all finished. And so now I'm mounting it on here with, again, those pocket hole screws that I already have the holes in them, and it's all lined up to made it a lot easier than trying to hold this vertically and trying to screw that in there. And so here it is, the strape or the structure, somewhat basically finished. You can see those parts in the middle is where I'm going to attach the fake drawer fronts. But this is structurally strong, so you can see that everything that's visible is finished. And so here's the drawer fronts. I finished them as I showed previously, maybe not specifically this, but with Danish oil and some polyurethane, and I'm just using some steel wool here, just very like quad 4 or 4.0, I think, just to kind of knock down any little peaks or anything, just to make it nice and smooth. I didn't want to sand it down at all. This was just the final finish, just to make it smooth, as mentioned. And then I mounted those onto the top, so you can see those are they'll look like all 4 pieces will be look like 4 drawers, but the top obviously the bowl's in the way. But I got the gap there straight. This is my camera. This camera makes it look a little more red than my you can see here than my phone camera. But this is the actual color, and so this is where I'm actually mounting the vanity top. This thing was quite awkward and trying to get into this narrow space, and I think it weighed like 130, 140 pounds or so, but I was able to get it up there. You can see it's supported, and I think I kind of give a whew, because I thought for sure I was going to break something along, especially this or the wall or gouge it or anything. So I'm a little bit out of breath here. But the next is to build the actual drawers in the bottom. There's the drain in the way, so I had to make this kind of annoying U shape. I've made drawers before, and you may look at my other videos, but this is just, I added a little bit of complexity to it. So I pre-drilled those out, and I'm using these bloom slides where the edge of the drawer hangs over a half an inch, and then the bottom of the drawer, actually sits on those, on the slides. And then these are soft close. So I was just kind of, making it. I wanted to build it beforehand, so I'm showing you how I kind of flushed it out so that it'll clear the edge of that face frame. But I really wanted to build it out and have it put in here before I started doing the drawers, just because I had to, go around the pipes, and it was all kind of custom made shapes here. So these are pretty easy. It's sitting on some wood, so it's going to take most of the weight, but this is just going to hold it in place. So you can see I have to do both sides here. And then so I ended up, but I'm using this to measure the distance. And as you do with any of these drawers, they need a 1/2 inch cut. So what I'm going to do is put a dado in all the pieces of the drawer that you see. And then it's going to go in about a quarter. I like to measure a 1/4 inch, the bottom of the drawer that slides in. So the first cut is going to be the bottommost cut. I'm just trying a test piece just to try it out to make sure. So now I have a cut that's a 1/4 inch deep, and then it's a 1/2 inch from the bottom. So then I just run all the pieces through that. Again, I'm just testing it. And then so I'm just going to make a whole bunch of passes with it, just enough to the thickness of the piece of wood. But you can see here, I've run it a couple times, just kind of showing you for the last cut. After I cut all the pieces, I end up with this 1/2 inch groove that's going to be just enough for my drawer bottom. And then just double checking, yep, it's a 1/4 inch deep, and I know it's a 1/2 inch. And so the slight complexity with this is you can see how the dados don't line up correctly, and also if I won't be able to slide in the drawer from the back. I would have to slide it in and then put this piece and attach it. So what's easier is just to cut off the bottom bit from the dado down. And I didn't touch the drawer or the table saw, the fence since I made that last dado on purpose. And so what I do is just raise the blade above, and it's gonna come in at that same exact distance on the last dado did, but cut all the way through the wood. And so what I'll end up with, it'll be a little easier to see, but you can see it's a perfect cut there right along the edge. Then I can slide in the drawer front from the back and make it a lot easier. So here, as you can see, there's dados on the side. It's hard to see it right at the moment, but those are the whole bottom is shorter, and so you can see the dados. So now I'll be able to slide in the bottom directly from the back and attach it much easier. So I found this was a lot easier to do than trying to, build it in two different pieces. So now I got the 1/2 inch wood, so this is going to be my bottom. So I started off and making a 1/2 inch cut just so it's the right size. And I put it in there, and somehow I screwed up the cut. I'm not sure why. This should go all the way past the wood. So yeah, thumbs down. So threw that piece away. I think maybe I reused it or so. So this is what it should actually look like. It should come all the way flush to the back like this, not an inch short or whatever I had. So I got that piece, and then a little more creative editing here. I don't show, but I just used a saw just to cut out that little bit square there. I think I used a jigsaw or so. So now I have a complete drawer, much better. It looks pretty nice. I use poplar for the edges, and then, like I said, a little bit nicer plywood for the bottom. And then here I'm getting slightly confused. I was about to nail it in. I was just like, how is this fitting? How is this edge? I just make sure before I screw it in. I just use glue and brad nails, and it holds it plenty. It's plenty strong. So once I got the outer frame built, I just wanted to double check it, just make sure it worked as I expected. So I just put it onto the slides and just push it in, made sure it cleared the plumbing in the back there, and that it was flush. There's some holes in the back. I'll show a little bit later. And then I'm going to put it in the bottom, and you can see I'm obviously not thinking very well, and I'm putting it in backwards, and then I realized about halfway through, like, oh yeah, it goes this way. Okay, much better. So now I'm going to put this in. It's not real tight, but it's just snug enough where it goes in there and it's not going to shake around. But so this is going to be holding, it may hold weight, and it's a pretty big drawer. So I decided to just put some nice screws in there. So I'm countersinking them, and then I'm going to put, I think it's like 10 screws or something like that in there. But before I screw it in, double check, make sure it's square. If I need to rack it to one side or the other just to get it square before I screw it in. But here's, I mentioned, the back side of the blooms have these pins that you'd have to screw a hole into the back of your drawer, and that's what keeps it from tipping. So what's the easiest is just put it on there and then push it back onto those pins, and they'll make a dent, and you know where to screw it in. There's jigs they make. This is the easiest way though. Or sometimes I'll just put like blue tape on there just to make it a little bit more visible. So when I push it on, you can see it's scratched the tape. And so then I go back with a drill bit, make that hole. So that'll attach. And then on the front, which attaches to the rails, are these little clips that go in. And then they have a little pinch that that little black piece is what catches on the slide. I can show you that in a minute. So you just drill a hole into there, attach them. So here's what I'm showing. You can see that little notch when it goes on top of the slide, it attaches right there. So the hole I drilled goes in the back there, and then that clip on the front gets attached to the front. And you can't tell, but I've clipped it in place, and now it's held securely. And it's sitting back just a little bit, like I think maybe 3/16 of an inch or so, just because so it doesn't bottom out as it closes, so that the soft close will work better. And then here comes the comic, a bunch of errors. It's quite comical. It wasn't at the time. So this is the way I normally attach drawer faces, as I put double-sided tape on there, and then I just push the frame onto there, and then it holds, and then I pull it out, screw it from the back. It was too heavy, and I'm using cards here. They make a nice spacer. Just see the thickness I want, count out the number of cards, and then I can have as many spacers as I want. So here, like I said, I've got it dropping the cards, trying to hold this thing. It's like 2.5 feet long, so it's a little bit annoying. See, normally press it into the tape, pull it off, and the drawer comes with it, except it didn't. It's too heavy, and it's not touching that, and I don't know, I finally gave up, but just you can enjoy my pain for a little bit here as I tried it a couple times. This time I tried wedging some wood in there so that it would be sticking out a little bit farther, so when it touched the tape, it's really strong and it would normally hold. It would just not work this time, so I just kept trying it. I think I tried it like 5 times maybe. Every time I dropped the cards or they fell, I had to count them out again. This is my 3rd time. Don't worry, I won't show you every failed attempt, but just kind of funny. So what I ended up doing was screwing from the back, putting a hole here, and then putting a screw through from the back, and so that pokes out, and then I just press the drawer front into that so you can see it sticking out. I don't like this method because if the screw, it's hard to get it perfectly straight, and so it hits at a slight angle, and it ended up not being exactly how I wanted it, so I ended up having to fine tune it a little bit, but it's essentially the same process. Just put it in there, get your gap correctly, just hit it a little bit, and then you'll end up with a dent on the back. Then I pre-drill that hole, put it up against here, and then run the screw through the back of the drawer into that pre-drilled hole on the drawer front, and then it's attached, as you can see here. So it works. It's hard to tell in there, but you can see that the left side, the gap isn't exactly correct. So I went back and fixed it, but it was kind of a pain. So one of the last pieces here is to mount the backsplash. This came along with the Vanity top. I like to put it on little spacers like I have there, those black pieces, just to have it so it's not completely flush. And I'm using this adhesive just to attach it to the wall. I like to have a little bit of gap on the bottom so that I can fit some the caulk or silicone in there instead of having it only in the corner. I found it works a little bit better and lasts a little bit longer. Probably overdid it with the amount of adhesive I put on there, but I had it, so just made it a little bit easier. It's not difficult, but just try not to get that adhesive all over the wall because it's not going to come off. So just sit it down on there, again with that little bit of gap, push it up against the wall, and then I left it overnight just to dry. I kind of straightened it out a bit here just to get it flush with the edges. But that was about it for that. This was pretty one of the more simple parts, and then just caulk along that gap. Like I said, I think I'd actually put a colored caulk in there in the gap in the back just so it'd be color coordinated, and then I went back with this clear silicone because it's way better for waterproof situations like this. But just use the finger, get it all done. This was easy. And here is the finished product. I added a little bit of or 2 drawer handles on there. So you can see the top, as I mentioned several times now, are fake, but they are the same size and dimensions as the bottom ones, which are actual drawers. So here's this little, kind of hidden drawer, not hidden, but, kind of a small thing that you can open it. You can see it goes in there. I didn't push it hard enough, but it has the soft close here. and then it wraps around those pipes. So give me just a little bit of extra room for towels, things like that. Obviously, whatever you want to put in there, but it came out really good. I'm really happy with the way it came out. I think it looks nice with that continuous pattern. I like how this is the first time I ever tried making a floating piece of furniture like this. That worked out. You see, I made all adjustments, got the gaps just as I needed it. Can't tell right here, but you can see the pattern of the wood. Came out good. You can see the bottom, just kind of view from the bottom. So this was one of the larger pieces for my bathroom remodel, but I'm really glad this was done because this took a lot of work.